Melissa.
Rhonda, you might have, it seems like the air conditioning's on. You might have closed the door. So
That's fine.
Well, hi everybody. I've met some of you before, and I'm honored to meet Gordon now finally too after stepping into his shoes in my 33rd district. I also had the same experience petitioning as Doug did with the crazy abortion questions, the gun questions, and I always knew the Republican from the Democrat. They'd ask me the question, they'd look at me and they'd say, "I have one question for you," and I said, "Wait, it's either abortion or guns, right?" And how'd you know? So it was kind of interesting, and I always try to bring them back to, well, you know, I'm really trying to help you out in my district. I'm not working on national issues. This is the problem. We think big, we should start small. And unfortunately, I had like 8,000 signatures in order to qualify for public financing, and I might be the only one in the state who's doing that. I'm not sure. SEEC and SOX, the Secretary of State's office, is always quite confused when I call because their petition is shared between them, as most of you know. I pulled the Green Party had the line because of Collins votes in our district, so I didn't have to petition to get on the ballot. But I am going for public financing, which is 20% of the registered voters, which are from the last election, which is 8,000. I have around 3,000 signatures now, and about $6,000. I need $15,000. But we're really going gangbusters in my district, and we have a lot of support, and it's really great. People love that there's a third option. Whether they exercise that at the polls or not, that's why I'm going to try to give them a little pep talk in my campaign brochures and my mailers. I try to, every person I talk to, petitioning at parades and everything else, when I say I'm a third party, I'm running on an independent line, Green Party line, not a D, I'm not an R, I'm not a politician. They say, oh, and they grab the board out of my hand. They love that. And I say, I've started to say to people, just I hope you have the guts to vote for that third line when you get into that voting booth, because that's what it's going to take. They always get in there, and their hand starts to shake as they hover over the D, hover over the R. So I'm really hoping to give them a little pep talk to help them. In my district, I'm running, we just had a primary. Let me go back. The reason why I got involved in wanting to run for public office is because of the Haddam land swap. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Haddam land swap. It was a state piece of property that was deeded it to be open space in perpetuity. My state senator, Eileen Daly, a Democrat, decided to take that away and swap it and give it to a private developer, just one private developer. And in return, we were going to get 87 acres of cliff and rocks. It's not attached, so it doesn't have a view of the river. The 17-acre state land was kind of beautiful view of the river, the Good Speed Opera House, the antique swing bridge. They were just going to give it to this banquet facility. So I fought that heavily. I created a website, landswap.org. We had hundreds of people sign petitions. I had meetings in Haddam where hundreds of people from around the district came to fight this. And we had national media, with Boston Globe, New York Times, cover that. So that's what made me get involved. I had it with 20 years, state senator, just doing what she wants. And so Jim Crawford now has won the primary for the D, the Democrats. He was for the land swap. That's going to give me a lot of votes. And Eileen Daly has come out in support of Mr. Crawford. So that will also help me. The Republican candidate is only 23 years old. I'm 38. I will be 38 next month. So that's also going to help. Republicans are going to have a hard time voting for a 23-year-old who just graduated college last year. That's going to be a huge boost, and I'm hoping to get some of those votes as well. But I've been involved locally in Haddam for the past 5 years. I've taped all the board of selectmen meetings and important town meetings and put them on YouTube and community access cable. I'm all about open government and letting people know what's right and wrong in their own town. I've also helped set up a third party in town called the Better Haddam. It was a conglomerate of unaffiliated Democrats, Republicans, and we almost won for a selectman seat. We lost by 58 votes a couple of 4 years ago. 3 years ago. And I also write for the Haddam Bulletin about government and business in my town. And that paper is actually what broke the Lansdowne story. Ed Schlag is my campaign manager and editor of the bulletin. And people love that because we really expose what really goes on in our town. And that's what I think that we need from the politicians. They usually hide behind the truth. And they could care less about telling what it should be like. But I love Ralph Nader's quote, is if you don't turn on to politics, politics will turn on you. So I really have been trying to follow that wholeheartedly. But unfortunately, the two-party system has the reins. They make the rules for the third party, so they rig the game against us. In fact, a little piece of information that's happened in the past 2 months that, as a Green Party, you all should know. The Independent Party approached me to see if I wanted to be on their line as well. However, some of you may know this, some of you may not. The Independent Party has a split right now. One side leans Republican, the other side leans Democrat. And what the Independent Party, Republican-leaning side, there's 2 chairmen of the party. So they're in court battle right now. But the Republican-leaning Independent Party wants to get the Republicans affiliated with them like the working family has with the Democrats. And it's kind of disgusting. So now the 2 parties are usurping our 3rd and 4th and 5th parties. And it doesn't work right away. It's really sad. Yeah. I think the best way we can fight that is locally. I fully support Jill Stein who donates to her campaign, and I will probably put all of her media up at my booths at the upcoming fairs. We do need to start locally and small. If we don't do that, you don't build a house with the roof first and then the foundation later. I think we really do need to get more people involved with the young people. I have so many young people who want to help with my campaign. They don't really want to do something political, or they don't have a lot of time. And it's hard when everybody's lives are so busy. But if we make it fun, and especially with Hat Bulletin, when you expose things, people are like, really, that's going on? I had 130 people at a planning and zoning meeting that I got them interested to go to because of something that's going on. When's the last time you've seen 130 people at planning and zoning?
They needed that.
So, I mean, I think what we need to do is really try to get younger people involved, even if they're not really affiliated with the Green Party or registered with the Green Party. There's, like you guys said, 50%, or at least in my district too, are registered unaffiliated. 25 Ds, 25 Rs. That's a huge amount of people. When I tell people when I'm petitioning that there's 50% unaffiliated voters in the district, they're like, really? I'm unaffiliated. They all call themselves independent. It's the same thing. They don't want to be pigeonholed into a D or an R. And I think that we need to help them not fear that third choice. And I'm working on a T-shirt similar to your sign. It says, the lesser of 2 evils is still evil. And it has an elephant and a donkey stepping on a person, and the number says, vote your third choice. Or you have a choice, Schlag percentage. And I think that's very important for them to realize when they get into that booth. If you're always fearing that choice, what's the point of voting? Might as well stay home. There's a great Green Party young man in Maine. Some of you may know him, Pump Patriot. I think his name. I'll think of it in a minute. But he has, if you just Google Pump Patriot or on YouTube, he has some great videos to really give the Green Party a pep talk. He's running for senator in the Green Party in Maine. And he's unbelievable what he says, and he really makes it clear. There's some swears, so you can't really share it with everybody. But it's been exciting, and physically talking to 3,000 people about my election is going to really help. If we get to 4,000, we get a third of the public financing, which will be, that's half of the 20%. I feel we should get half of the money, not a third of the money. And that's another unfair part of the process. So we will get at least hopefully $32,000. If any of you would like to donate to my campaign, I have forms that unfortunately the Secretary of State or SEC needs to be filled out. Even $5, $10 helps. So I have those here. And thank you everybody, and thanks for being green and working so hard.
Question.
Oh yeah, sir.
I mean, there are certainly a lot of compelling reasons to go for a third choice, but what are the kind of positive things that attract, what makes you green And is there, even in Haddam or any local town, is there a national flavor to the Green Party in light of what's going on with the increasing warmth and everything else that you can somehow kind of work into your local campaign?
Well, especially in my area, the Connecticut River Valley, we're all about, obviously, conserving land. We have we're big with the land trusts in all of the towns, and we have the largest watershed area in the state of Connecticut. So we really do want to keep the water protected. I think everybody that I talk to wants that, so I'm environmentally focused. The other thing I've been saying is I am fiscally conservative in the fact that I believe we need to conserve our land and our water, because water's going to be worth more than oil one day. It's going to cost more than oil one day. And I'm also socially responsible, especially in Connecticut, well, in any state. We already have a national health care plan. Because if any one of us are unemployed or uninsured, we go to the hospital, they're not going to put you out back in the alley. We're already paying for it. We're all paying for it in some way. And I explain it to people that way, and they really understand. Whether they choose that third option or not on the ballot is something left to be decided. But I think that we really have a good chance in my district. I'm also for open government. I don't believe it, and I'm into communication as well. If a constituent has an issue, they can email me, call me. Whereas my past senator never responded. I can't even tell you how many. It's been at least 50 people when I go to petition. They say, "Oh, Eileen Daly, she never called me back, or she never emailed me back, or I wrote her a letter, I never heard from her." And that happened for the past 3 years. I mean, she was getting tired, yes. Well, if they're tired, they don't run for office. So I really feel that we can bring those Green Party principles into local districts, especially the national health care, women's rights. I think we just need to explain them to people that they understand. A lot of Republicans have really have been standing behind me in my ideas. They do have their abortion issues. But I do explain. If somebody comes to me and they say, well, what do you feel about abortion? I said, well, it's really a national issue, but I'm pro-choice. However, I do believe we need to give the mothers a chance to figure out what they need to do, what they have. And I turn the question back on them, and I say, well, what do you feel about a national health care plan? Oh, well, I don't really think we need a national health. I said, what does a mother who's 17 years old, there's no husband, there's no father, her parents are barely around, if she even has parents, how is she supposed to make an educated decision or take care of that child if there's no support network, there's no safety net? And then they kind of look at me with a blank stare, well, I'm for helping people on the inside. So that's how I think of bringing it locally to small town examples of things that are going
on the conservation part, kind of very disappointed with the conservation group, Land Trust, and the big conservation group in Connecticut, because they are so politically involved that they don't want to rock the boat. So even though they have a good candidate that really represents their values, they still want to go for the lesser of two evils.
Well, and I'll explain that. Like the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters, I filled out some questionnaires to be endorsed by certain groups. Sierra Club, Connecticut League of Conservation Voters. I had a conversation with one of the deciders who's helped with the land swap. We were down at the rally when we kind of won the land swap. That's a longer story I won't get into. But she was there, and I was talking. She's like, I had no idea you were running. And I had known this woman for a year. I helped lobby with her in Hartford. And I said, yeah. I said, I decided that if I can do it myself better than anybody else. And she said, I think this is awesome you're running. And she says, oh, the questionnaires are coming out in a couple of months. And I said, have you ever endorsed a third-party candidate? No, we've never done that. Sierra Club, never done this. But what I find interesting is they'll endorse a Republican. So, and I was told by the Sierra Club that they don't really like to endorse third-party candidates because it'll irritate the other party. And I said, okay, so Republicans and Democrats are juxtaposed, they're completely opposed to each other. But it doesn't make any sense. So that's a very disappointing thing. In fact, when it came to fighting for land swap, they just wrote a nice little letter saying, please stop the land swap. And that just doesn't cut it. We'll see. But definitely the two parties have polarized everything.
I'm in the same line of thinking as I was going to encourage you to approach CCAG. Have you done that yet?
CCAG.
Connecticut Citizens Action Group in
No.
Hartford. They have endorsed me as a third-party candidate, and I think they were against the land swap, but I guess I would have to do that research.
I've never seen their name on the list, but
But they do have a form, and they've never offered me assistance, but I bring them up specifically because the director is Tom Swan, and we had a forum here in Wyndham where we were talking about, well, the issue of this goal for third parties to have to meet in terms of petitioning and fundraising. And I said to Tom very directly that he was absolutely wrong to be testifying that that was a fair system and that it was so slanted. And they had a really hard time endorsing me. They didn't endorse me last time because I was not the D. So he's like honest and looked at me and said, "That's not true. It's no harder for you than anyone else." I said, "Wait till you try to run a third-party race with these obstacles, Tom." He said, "Well, it may happen sooner than you think. Maybe I'll try it." And I'm like, I'd love to see you who has an issue that CCAG I think was on the right side on. Go to Tom Swan and say, "Help me out here. This is what I'm stuck with." At least put it in front of him.
I will. That's great.
Hi, I'm Barbara. Sierra Club doesn't just people with Michael and but
Oh, they did? Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
But I have a question about first responders, which is a local issue. As a nurse and as a taxpayer and resident, I know that when I call doctor's office, they're not there, psychiatrists not there, social workers not there. Some of our trauma helicopters have not been able to fly because they don't have first responders there. This has a huge impact, and it has a national impact. We have to also, on another level, towns go and have to have a vote on the councils or put referendums in that are binding about whether we should pay such and such amount of money to our policemen or firemen or our council member who's over in other parts of the world, meeting the National Guard duties. And that has a direct impact on a local level, but it is a national level. So I just bring that up. I was wondering how you would handle it.
Yeah, I actually had that one question by another person in Colchester, actually. What time were you?
I'm in Weathersfield, but certainly, these helicopters going over the state, and you're on the river. You've had fires in places, your state streets.
Yeah, we have large tracts of land in my area. East Hampton, are huge towns, and you need that support, and it's hard, to. A lot of people don't really understand. And the other problem is media. There's not a lot of articles to explain to people what we need and what is lacking. And you have to choose your battles wisely where you spend money. I don't think anything to do with healthcare or a person's life should ever be put on.
But it has an impact, not just national, but statewide, which is what you be addressing when you get elected.
As I understand it, even the National Guard equipment, the National Guard was actually intended to help on floods, earthquakes, and so forth. And the way they keep redeploying and redeploying, it is depriving the towns, as well as the families, because the families are suffering.
We're down so many tanks. Half our tanks are gone, or destroyed now from the state of Connecticut because they've been destroyed overseas.
And they're not getting replaced.
They're not. There's nothing in the budget for that.
No. And that's kind of
but people can certainly contact Doug and Melissa with issues, and maybe after the program, they'll be able to stand around and talk to people as well.